welcome to Sunshine Cathedral's Queer God Squad. It's Friday, December 12th, 2025. I am Bishop Darrell Watkins, the Senior Minister of the Sunshine Cathedral. With me today are Bishop Robert Griffin, my husband, Reverend Dr. Ann Atwell, and Reverend Kevin Tisdall. We are the Queer God Squad. Visit sunshinecathedral.org to learn more about us.
Queer God Squad was created by Hotspots Happening Out to support our mission to explore the value of faith in the LGBTQ community. There is no streaming TV show like this in the entire world.
In 2025, we are celebrating the 40th anniversary of Hotspots magazine, with Queer News Tonight sharing over 11,000 stories and 11 million views so far.
We are the largest nonprofit LGBTQ media organization in America, and we encourage you to support our mission to inform, entertain, and educate our community and allies.
This is the Sunshine Cathedral perspective. As Africa seeks reparative justice for colonialism, will it include queer liberation too? African leaders are intensifying their push for the international community to officially recognize, criminalize, and provide reparations for colonial-era crimes. At a conference in Algiers, diplomats and leaders convened to advance an African Union resolution that calls for justice and reparations for victims of colonialism and to formally define colonization as a crime against humanity. The African Foreign Minister, Ahmed Attaf, emphasized that African countries continue to, quote, pay a heavy price in terms of exclusion, marginalization, and backwardness, end quote, for the colonial era. He stressed the need for a legal framework to ensure restitution is viewed as a right, again quoting, neither a gift nor a favor, end quote. The conference highlighted the staggering economic cost of colonialism, which some estimates place in the trillions, resulting from the brutal extraction of natural resources by European powers. African nations have also been making increasing demands for the return of looted cultural artifacts currently held in European museums. Algeria's experience under French rule was cited as a core example, noting the bloody war for independence and the widespread use of torture and disappearances by French forces. The discussion also extended to the issue of Western Sahara, which Algeria frames as a case of unfinished decolonization. The movement for reparative justice is also gaining momentum in other regions, with Caribbean governments also advocating for a formal apology and financial reparations from former colonizers for the lasting legacy of colonialism and enslavement. The Queer God Squad wonders if such important discussions and calls for repairing the damages of colonialization will include confronting sexist and homophobic religions that Europe forced upon colonized nations. Will restorative justice include seeing LGBTQ+ people as fully human and deserving of human rights? I would hope so. And I'm not holding my breath. It's difficult to say, but it is. Getting nations to admit wrongdoing is a struggle. It is difficult, but it is necessary. It's past time for all of these nations to acknowledge and for reparations, to my mind, to those who have been hurt by colonization.
Oh, sure. The problem is universal, and it's as old as time, is dehumanization. You just can't. Empathy really is part of our makeup. I mean, dogs have it. I mean, and we're even more evolved, supposedly. So, you know, dogs, cats have it. I suppose almost all sentient beings have some level of compassion. So that's just part of our makeup. And so, but the compassion sometimes is limited to people like us. You know, it's like, if I'm a butterfly, I'm here for all butterflies, but, you know, other things, maybe, you know, worms, that's just, you know, those are something else or whatever. So we have compassion, but we also feel the need to limit that compassion so that we can other something else. So if I can make you less than human, less than fully human, then your emeralds are my emeralds, your diamonds are my diamonds, your gold is my gold, because you're not smart enough to handle it. You don't even know what to do with it, because you're not as human as I am. So I'm entitled to your stuff, which is how a lot of wealth was built, by just taking it and then using free labor, enslaved labor, or even underpaid it. Even still, people who call themselves billionaires are paying people minimum wage. and no benefits. Like, so they're getting rich off someone else's work and not providing for them. So that system, that mindset is still in place. If you can dehumanize someone, you can treat them any kind of way. You can enslave them, you can rob from them, you can kill them, you can declare war on them, you can decide not to fund research to cure them if they have a disease. As long as you dehumanize. And so, yes, these entire populations were dehumanized by Europeans. That needs to be addressed, and there needs to be some sort of apology, some sort of restitution, and women who are being forced, not castration,
Sterilization.
well, sterilization, but also the when you cut the fat, circumcision. when you cut the
female
skin,
circumcision,
the
particularly
skin
in
part
the
of the
African
penis,
nations,
which is whatever. But for women, that especially, and they're already like teens at the time, that is torture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if you don't see women as, you know what I mean? So this dehumanization, and they dehumanize LGBTQ people. Obviously. Now that was probably an import also from Europe, but it really took hold. So as long as we're okay dehumanizing, as long as we're okay with othering, there's always going to be this kind of just unkind, cruel, brutal way people are treated. So yes, please, reparations for all of the racial injustice, and also women of all nationalities and races need to be their humanity recognized, and people, no matter who they love or whether or not their gender experience matches your expectation of them, or we've got to get rid of the othering. And this is a good place to start, but it needn't stop there. We need to remember whoever we thought was less than human, we were almost certainly mistaken. We just did that so we could treat them badly.
Yeah.
And we've got to evolve past that. In my lifetime, it seems like we've done some devolving, but I hope we can go back in the right direction again. We've got to start seeing humans as human, because we will see them as human, then our natural empathy will kick in. The way we shut it off is by dehumanizing people.
I think whether economic justice comes from this or not, the reparative justice period, just having the conversation, and getting nations to recognize their hand that they had in this, I think, is a huge thing. And I'm all for returning property back to original nations, as it should be. I mean, I think we just saw something that recently happened in the African American History Museum here in America. Somebody had some property that belonged to somebody and got returned. But I mean, we're talking about just generations who have been dehumanized, who have been othered, who we come in the name of Christianity, and you're wrong and we're right, and we're gonna all this stuff. That's not how this game is played. It never should have been played that way, but certainly today we are way further down the road on knowing how we ought to treat people better than what they have been treated. And I think just being able to recognize the other is a first step. So I'm hoping this really becomes more of a global push, to be honest, and certainly more of a global push that will include the LGBT community.
I've been to places like Tunisia and Egypt, and been to the museums there and saw some amazing artwork. But the greatest artwork from Africa that I've ever seen was in museums in the United Kingdom. So there's a problem there, but that's not really what we're talking about right now. I listened to a broadcast recently where a black conservative, was talking to someone about how terrible Africa is, and it's because the countries couldn't get themselves together. They couldn't become cohesive units. And the commentator said, "Don't you understand why?" And she really did not know that at some time in the 1800s, the European nations got together and divvied up the entire continent and decided who was getting what. So when she started saying that the African nations are perpetrating black on black crime, she's missing a major point. She's missing the idea that these nations first had to fight the Europeans to get their natural resources back, to get what belonged to them away from the European colonizers. And to say that black on black crime is a terrible thing, then let's go to Ukraine and look at white on white crime. I mean, it just happens that we kind of fight the people that we're closest to in terms of geography, not necessarily because of ethnicity. So yeah, there's a lot that's going on in Africa right now, and a lot of it has to do with the colonization and the church coming into Africa and taking away natural alliances, natural religious beliefs that Africans held before the Europeans came in. And they were powerful enough, the Europeans, to force the African nations to kowtow to their thoughts on Christianity, their thoughts on sexuality. There is great evidence that before colonization, the acceptance of two-faced people, two-sided people was very common. It was expected and accepted that certain people were going to be different than, quote unquote, different than the rest. And they were fully accepted into society. So church comes in, screws things around, church leaves, and the African nations are trying to figure out, how do we get back to what we used to have? So the conversation, I think, goes deeper than just the colonization that came in and in many ways hurt Africa. And it comes to, what are the African nations going to do today to begin to heal some of the hurts that were caused by the Europeans coming in?
The answer isn't to duplicate their model, though.
Right.
Because then you just have different people hurting other new people or whatever. So that's, you've got to have a just model, and patriarchy is not a just model.
No.
So you've got to have a just model. The other, I think it was Archbishop Tutu, who said the missionaries came and we had the land and they had the Bible, and they said, let us pray, and we bowed our heads, and when we came back up, they had the land and we had the Bible. And that really is the story, that missionary work was really just religious colonization. It was just the religious face of colonization, and maybe even more insidious, because religion forced on people is colonization of your mind. And maybe of your sexuality or your gender identity or whatever. To have your religious be forced on you, either by threat of death, or threat of torture, or threat of exile, or threat of an afterlife torture, hell, whatever. Once that is once you were compelled, once you were forced, once you were coerced, you've been violated. And then once you accept that and pass that on to future generations, that is just ongoing colonization. I mean, I'm happy for you to see what I do in religion, and if you find that groovy, happy for you to try it on, but there is absolutely no consequence if you don't. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care how you try to be religious or non-religious. If you like what we got going on, we'd love for you to join us. We're gonna have a good time together. But there's don't do it for fear of hell. That's a terrible reason to do anything. And there's no hell to be afraid of. Don't do it because, someone will be disappointed. Screw them, that's their issue. So the problem with the missionary work is that it is step 2, or maybe even step 1, of colonization, but it colonizes yourself. And that is what I think is absolutely sinful.
Amen.
And that's today with the Queer God Squad. Next, let's travel together with the Sunshine Cathedral community on a journey unlike any other. Arabia's best kept secret, the mystical fjords of Kasab. Kasab is the kind of place seasoned travelers whisper about. The quiet Arabian secret that feels like it belongs in a National Geographic show. Sailing through the Musandam fjords, you glide between cliffs carved by time itself. If you're lucky, and most visitors are, playful pods of dolphins trail the boat, darting through the sapphire water like they own the coastline. For those who crave the offbeat, a 4x4 trek up Jebel Harim reveals a world tourists rarely touch. Fossil-covered peaks, Bedouin villages where life still follows ancient rhythms. Back in town, Kasab Fort stands watch over the harbor, its coral-stoned walls echoing centuries of maritime lore. And of course, true Omani warmth awaits. Dates served with rich cardamom-kissed kawa, and market stalls filled with handmade treasures. Tempted? Dive deeper into this extraordinary adventure at happening.travel/sunshine.
Before we go, I want to invite you to check out the Performing Arts series. Here's a taste of what is coming up in December at the Sunshine Cathedral Center for the Performing Arts.
On Friday, December 12th, the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida will be performing at Sunshine Cathedral.
And the very next night, December 13th, the Girls Choir of South Florida will be giving their holiday concert. And the night after that, December 14th, it will be the Broward Women's Chorale's turn to bring holiday joy in music.
On Friday, December the 19th, we will be charmed by Trouble in Paradise. This concert is titled Trouble and Tidings, an a cappella holiday.
And on Saturday, December 20th, Anthony Nunziata will be performing with a community choir.
In addition to these amazing performances, all of which offer an add-on Cathedral Pub experience for purchase, allow me to invite you to Sunshine Cathedral's Christmas Eve services at 7 p.m. or 9 p.m. on December the 24th.
Please like and share this episode on your social media and look for Sunshine Cathedral on Facebook or Instagram.
You can also like our individual pages on Facebook. Remember to visit sunshinecathedral.org frequently. There you will find Bishop Talk, where Bishop Durrell and I interview queer religious leaders, activists, and scholars.
Thank you for joining the Queer God Squad today. We are here daily at 3 p.m. to have some fun and to discuss what our LGBTQ community is talking about.
Sunshine Cathedral is the world's leading progressive queer church. Progressive, queer, and God are words that naturally should go together. Remember that we are all in this together. Also remember, you are God's miracle, not God's mistake. Until next time, we are the Queer God Squad.